In the headlines for this hour, VTV News, Prime Minister presides over monthly government lawmaking session. Our authorities hold consultations on draft of special consumption tax law. And in a warning, positive progress in Russia-U.S. negotiations.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello, it's 8 a.m. local time in Hanoi, and you're watching VTV News. Prime Minister Phie chaired a monthly government meetings lawmaking session on Wednesday to discuss 6 draft laws and legislative proposals, and more on this and following story.
In his opening remarks, the Prime Minister emphasized that institutions are a driving force and resource for development, and they can also be both a bottleneck of bottlenecks and a breakthrough of breakthroughs. Therefore, investing time in well-thought-out laws is investing in development, and a well-executed lawmaking process will create growth opportunities. Highlighting that lawmaking is a mandatory requirement in leadership and management, he requested ministers, heads of ministry-level agencies, and government affiliate agencies exert efforts to ensure quality and effectiveness in lawmaking.
6 clarifications are required: the contents that are omitted, the contents that are amended, the contents that are added, the contents that are reduced or simplified in administrative procedures, the contents that involve decentralization and delegation of authority, and the issues with controversial opinions that need to be reported to the Government Standing Committee, the government, and the Prime Minister for consideration and direction. The supplementation and amendment of legal regulations must adhere to these clarifications to ensure the quality and timely formulation of legal documents.
These approaches will unlock the full potential of production, including production materials, resources, human capital, and historical and cultural traditions, while mobilizing all available resources for the country's socio-economic development. The government will submit 30 draft laws and resolutions to the National Assembly at the 9th session. The Prime Minister requested agencies urgently complete the draft laws to meet this target, ensuring progress and quality.
Prime Minister Phie met with Charles Bowman, a general director of the Trump Organization, on Tuesday and supported the group plan to invest $1.5 billion in Hưng Yên. He urged Vietnamese authorities to review the proposals comprehensively to accelerate the project while ensuring legal compliance and mutual benefits. The Prime Minister highlighted Vietnam's efforts to cut at least 30% of administrative procedures and compliance costs. He encouraged the Trump organizations to expand investment, integrate Vietnamese businesses into its global supply chain, and advocate for U.S. policies aligning with bilateral relations and the global context, including recognizing Vietnam's market economy status and facilitating high-tech imports from the United States. Also on Wednesday, Prime Minister Phie met with Hungarian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade Szijjártó Péter during the meeting. The Prime Minister proposed that the two countries enhance cooperation in various fields. Noting that Vietnam is restarting its nuclear power project, the Prime Minister requested Hungary's support in training high-quality human resources for operating nuclear power plant, an area of expertise for Hungary. The Prime Minister also urged Hungary to advocate within the EU for the early ratifications of the EVIPA agreement, encourage the European Commission to promptly lift the yellow card on Vietnamese seafood, and facilitate favorable conditions for the Vietnamese community in Hungary. With the country's 50 years of experience operating nuclear power plants, the Hungarian Foreign Minister affirmed that Hungary is ready to help train 1,000 expert operators for Vietnam, considering it's a strategic area of cooperation between the two nations. On Wednesday, National Assembly Chairman Trần Thanh Mẫn delivered a speech at the thematic conference on the Digital National Assembly and the applications of AI within the legislative body's digital transformation process. More on the following story.
Speaking at the conference, the top legislator highlighted the event's significance, demonstrating the National Assembly's determination to advance the application of state-of-the-art technologies to enhance its operational effectiveness and meet the country's development requirements in the new national era of development. He underscored that the Politburo's Resolution 57 on breakthrough development in science, technology, innovation, and national digital transformation set ambitious goals for the country to rank among the top 3 countries in Southeast Asia and the top 50 countries globally in terms of digital competitiveness and e-government development by 2030. The National Assembly chair also laid stress on the need for rapid and effective implementation of resolutions and projects related to the National Assembly, providing digital skill training for deputies and staff, developing modern digital infrastructure, and investing in AI application platforms to support the legislature's operations. Participants held that multiple harmonious solutions are needed to accelerate the National Assembly's digital transformation, including raising public awareness, updating knowledge to improve the legal framework, building digital infrastructure, developing AI platforms to support legislative activities, and enhancing digital human resources.
Draft amendments to the special consumption tax law have generated various opinions concerning tax rate levels and the timeline for tax increases on certain products. In response to this issue, the National Assembly Standing Committee has requested that the appraisals agencies consult ministries and a business association regarding the proposed tax increase plan.
Businesses fully understand the need to increase special consumption tax. However, they proposed a reduced rate of increase and a gradual implementation timeline. For example, regarding the increase in special consumption tax on beer and wine over 20 degrees, the Ministry of Finance is considering raising the tax to 80% in 2026 and increasing it by 5% annually until it reaches 100% in 2030. Businesses argued differently, seeking to start the tax increase in 2028 and an incremental 5% annual increase over 5 years.
4 years ago, taxes were increased by 15% each year. With this proposal, taxes will jump to 90% and then 100% in the next few years. This would be a shock for businesses.
Experts highlight that investment and consumption currently contribute over 90% of Vietnam's economic growth. Many believe the special consumption tax should be increased starting in 2028 to stimulate consumption while ensuring sustainable growth. Increasing the special consumption tax could boost state revenue while limiting the consumption of goods that harm people's health and the environment. However, careful evaluation of any changes is needed.
We must calculate how to harmonize the benefits of all parties. Harmonizing the benefits of all parties may have the opposite effect if we only aim to increase revenue.
The Vietnam Federation of Commerce and Industry will compile all opinions and submit a report to the Review and Drafting Agency. They will then revise draft amendments to the special consumption tax law to align with practical requirements.
Around 5,200 tons of roofing materials are being lifted at the Long Thanh International Airport construction site this month to cover the passenger terminal's doomed roof. To date, the project is valued at over $1.1 billion, equivalent to nearly 40% of the contract value. Contractors are closely following the progress of the construction packages and are determined to finish on schedule.
With 25 years of experience and nearly 2 years at the site, Phie leads daily construction at Long Thanh International Airport. He emphasizes safety and urges colleagues to use all their time, including lunch breaks, to stay on schedule.
We have to work hard. Even on Saturdays and Sundays, we work full-time.
We make up for the travel time by having the team work through lunch and only taking a 30-minute break to eat and rest.
Currently, all items are on track or ahead of schedule. The passenger terminal has completed over 80% of the main steel truss erection and 100% in the wing area. The rough construction, procurement, and equipment ordering progress has been contracted with suppliers. It is being fabricated according to the set schedule. The 5,200-ton roof of the passenger terminal has also been assembled in preparation for installation. Internal airport traffic and airfield construction are nearing completion, with plans to hand over to the investor by September 30th for airfield equipment installation, aiming for operational use by December.
The investor pays contractors as work progresses to ensure funding. Over $19.5 million United States dollars remains for our package.
The government has instructed the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Construction to prepare bidding documents and organize the selection of investors for Component Project 4, ensuring the overall schedule of Phase 1 of the Longtan International Airport project.
23 domestic banks have reduced their interest rate by 0.1 to 1% depending on the terms. Some banks have adjusted their rate twice or three times. The interest rate cuts follow a directive from the Prime Minister after some credit institutions raised deposit interest rates. The government has also emphasized strict regulation enforcement, with officials warning that any violation will be addressed. The governor of the State Bank is expected to consider measures such as adjusting credit growth limits and possibly revoking licenses for non-compliance. Coming up next on VTV News, scientists of Vietnamese origin teamed up for Vietnam development. And Ba Chua Su Festival reaches the level of human heritage.
When it comes to business, it's crucial to choose a smart location with global impact. And Vietnam might just be the location for you. Connect worldwide to advanced logistics networks. Smart hub for technology and innovation. A dynamic business ecosystem. An environment with a competitive edge.
Over 42,000 suspected measles cases have been reported nationwide, with 5 fatalities. Cases have risen compared to last year. Prime Minister Phie has directed full measles vaccination in high-risk areas by March 31st. The Ministry of Health has deployed sick inspection teams to oversee the effort and approve Phase 2 of the 2025 vaccination plan for 54 provinces and cities. High-risk areas in 48 provinces will administer 1 measles dose to children aged 6 to 9 months, while 52 provinces will conduct catch-up vaccination for children aged 1 to 10. The National Institute of Hygiene and Epidemiology has received 500,000 vaccine doses, distributing them to localities for immediate use. The campaign aims to contain the outbreak swiftly. Over 600,000 academics and experts of Vietnamese origin living and working worldwide are expected to be crucial access in helping Vietnam leapfrog and drive domestic innovation. The Prime Minister message at the inaugural March 18 meeting of the Government Steering Committee on Developing Science, Technology, Innovation, Digital Transformations and Project 06 in Hanoi encouraged overseas Vietnamese academics to return and contribute to the nation's development.
At this meeting, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh proposed allocating at least 3% of the 2025 budget to science and technology. This directive from the Prime Minister has been widely supported by Vietnamese origin scientists.
I strongly support this initiative. However, how the 3% is allocated and utilized is crucial. One important aspect to keep in mind is that scientific research inherently involves risk investment. We cannot simply expect that every scientific proposal will immediately yield specific outcomes.
After the pandemic, I think that there's a lot more view differently about the differences between living abroad versus living in Vietnam, the stability, the safeties, and all of the flexibility of the government.
To accelerate AI adoption in Vietnam, A group of Vietnamese experts working at leading global technology corporations and universities recently came together to establish a non-profit organization called AI for Vietnam.
Our first initiative is to develop the largest and highest quality Vietnamese language datasets ever created. We will also collaborate with leading global AI companies to integrate Vietnamese into their models. Generative AI is still new to the world, giving us the opportunity to advance alongside global developments rather than lag behind.
The establishment of AI Vietnam Foundation will create a network of experts, providing clear and unified directions for young talents to follow more effectively, rather than the current fragmented individual efforts. In terms of AI potential and capabilities, I believe Vietnam is on par with developed countries. Vietnam has a vast talent pool.
The launch of AI for Vietnam is a prime example of the efforts made by overseas Vietnamese intellectuals to build a strong and cohesive scientific research ecosystem. This ecosystem will enable close collaboration between experts, businesses, and the government to drive groundbreaking innovations.
Vietnam's airports, seaports, and border gates will implement biometric technology and VNeID by year-end, following a directive from the Prime Minister. This initiative aims to streamline administrative procedures and transform government services from a request-based to a service-providing approach. The government plans to simplify more than 320 administrative procedures through the digitization of personal data on electronic ID accounts, with completions expected in the second quarter of 2025. Local authorities are also expected to digitize household registration data and explore ways to reuse this data to simplify procedures. The 42nd National Television Festival officially opened in Quy Nhơn, Bình Định Province, hosted biennially by Vietnam Television. The event gathers media professionals to celebrate outstanding TV works. The opening feature of culturally rich artistic showcase. This year's 734 entries from 100 broadcasters reflect the growing influence of digital platforms in modern television. Earlier, a ceremony was held to honor Vietnam and Laos TV Group's cooperation in content exchange, technical support, and training. The Bà Chúa Xứ, or Holy Mother of the Realm Festival at Sam Mountains, is the largest spiritual festival in the Mekong Delta. With its unique culture and religious significance, UNESCO officially recognized the Bà Chúa Xứ Festival of Vietnam as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity last year.
Every year, from the 22nd to the 27th day of the fourth lunar month, hundreds of thousands of tourists worldwide flock to the Bà Chúa Xứ Temple on Sam Mountain in An Giang to worship.
Everyone believes in the sacredness of the Bà Chúa Xứ spirit and puts their faith there.
I came here to wish everyone in the family good health and peace.
The festival reflects the Vietnamese people's inheritance, integration, and creation during land reclamation, blending Mother Goddess worship from ethnic groups like the Kinh, Cham, Hoa, and Khmer. This uniqueness led UNESCO to recognize it as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity.
This is a joy not only for the party committee, local authorities, and people of An Giang province, but also for the whole country.
We are committed to completing all the procedures to preserve and promote the values of this heritage, ensuring it spreads more widely and strongly.
Every sound and activity generated by ethnic communities showcase uniqueness and solidarity, creating a multi-identity cultural heritage rich in value and international recognition.
The film Tunnels, Sun in the Dark is set to premiere nationwide on April 4th. For the first time, the resilient and daily life of guerrilla fighters in the Cu Chi tunnels have been vividly recreated on screen. The filmmaker's innovative approach has resulted in a compelling visual journey, transporting audiences back to Vietnam defining moments in history.
To mark the 50th anniversary of South Vietnam's liberation and national reunification, Tunnels, Sun in the Dark takes viewers deep into the Cu Chi tunnels during the Vietnam War's most intense period. In these underground passages, soldiers and militia created an impenetrable fortress. However, filming in such confined spaces posed major challenges.
I was extremely anxious. How could we work in such a cramped environment? There was barely any space for lighting equipment or camera movement.
After much deliberation, the team devised a solution: reconstruct the tunnels on a film set. This ensured smooth production while preserving the historical site.
Fortunately, we received guidance from veterans who had lived and fought in the tunnels. The Cu Chi residents dug these tunnels by hand, so we aim to keep the set design as raw and functional as possible.
Another major historical project is also in the works: Red Rain, the most ambitious war film by the People's Army Cinema in 2 decades. The movie reenacts the 81-day battle to defend Quang Tri Citadel, with filming taking place on a massive 40-hectare set beside the Tha Khon River.
As a war film based on real events, Red Rain requires precision. We conducted thorough research and consulted war veterans.
To attract younger audiences, the film features well-known social media influencers.
I hope viewers approach the film with optimism and appreciation for history. It's important to understand our past, honor our ancestors, and contribute to our country's future.
Through innovative storytelling, historical cinema continues to evolve, making the past more accessible, engaging, and emotionally resonant for new generations.
Coming up next in our news, positive progress in Russia-U.S. negotiations. And concern grow over Gaza humanitarian crisis. Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump had a 2-hour phone call on Wednesday, the second between the two leaders since President Trump took office. Both sides expressed hope that the conversation would bring them closer to ending the conflict in Ukraine. A key result was the proposal for a 30-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, targeting energy infrastructure, seen as the first step towards peace. The U.S. president described the call as very good and effective, while the Russian president reaffirmed his commitment to a peaceful resolution. Both leaders emphasized improving U.S.-Russia relations. Ukrainian President Zelensky supported the ceasefire proposals but stressed transparencies, while the UK, France, and Germany welcomed the progress, calling for a fair and lasting peace. China also welcomed efforts toward a ceasefire. U.S. and Russian officials are expected to continue discussions on March 23rd in Saudi Arabia. Aid organizations are warning of a growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza as Israel military intensify attacks, cutting off vital supplies like food, medicines, and fuel to over 2 million people. Hospitals are overwhelmed with casualties, and there are severe shortages of medical supplies and clean water. Israel Defense Minister warned of harsh retaliations if Hamas doesn't release the remaining 59 hostages. Hamas insists it will only release them if a second phase of the ceasefire is implemented. In a recent development, a far-right Israeli politician rejoined Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition, signaling strong support for continued military operations. This move makes the resolutions of the Gaza conflict seem increasingly distant. The European Commissioner for Defense and the Vice President of the European Commission presented the white paper on the future of European defense on Wednesday. The EU plans to enhance defense, focusing on military aid to Ukraine, including 1.5 million artillery shells, air defense systems, drones, and long-range missiles. The EU also aims to support Ukraine's defense industry, especially in drone tech and AI. A key issue addressed was the potential halt of Starlink services to Ukraine, with the EU proposing Ukraine connect to its own satellite network. The white paper also encourages EU states to prioritize European-made weapons and suggests the European Commission's negotiate joint procurement deals to reduce costs and unify standards. Tourist towns in Japan face significant damage from natural disaster every year, with some losses so severe that the local tourism industry takes years to recover. In the face of increasing climate change, these towns are becoming more proactive in responding to and mitigating the impact of natural disasters.
Hida, a tourist town in Oita Prefecture, is known for its 1,300-year-old Amagase hot springs. In 2020, a massive flood almost destroyed the town, damaging many buildings, including the hot spring facilities. Local authorities also noticed that the temperatures of underground hot springs dropped, affecting water quality.
When the flood came, the water level was about 2 meters above the road level. The ground floor was almost completely flooded. The kitchen and the furniture inside the house were destroyed. The damage was huge. We started cleaning up and removing the damaged furniture a month after the disaster.
Hida's recovery plan focuses on restoring the hot spring sources and disaster prevention. The Kusu River will be widened and lights and warning systems will be added for flood alerts. The main challenge is creating flood control structures that don't impact the hot spring sources.
A year after the disaster, the first inn reopened, and it took 3 years for the last inn in the town to resume operations. Before the disaster, our town welcomed many large tourist buses. Now, the inns have reopened, and little by little, tourists are starting to return.
Hida has initiated a volunteer disaster prevention and tourism development association, which regularly holds disaster preparedness drills. The town is also focused on researching and protecting its valuable hot springs from the risks posed by climate change.
And now, as usual, let's continue with the weather forecast. And that's it for this hour on VTV News. To rewatch your program, you can log on to VTVgo.vn or download the mobile application VTVgo. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.